A fist cracked against the back of a skull. The man didn't go down. He stumbled forward, caught himself on a metal table, and turned around slow. 3 men stood behind him, then 4, then 5. The biggest one stepped up, chest out, holding a sock weighted with something heavy inside it. The circle tightened. Nobody in the yard moved. Nobody called for a guard. The big man in the middle just stood there, hands open, palms down, breathing, not scared, not angry, something else entirely. Something the 5 men surrounding him had never once seen before. His name was Marcus Cole. Most of the inmates called him Big Country. 300 pounds. Quiet. Alone. Serving time on a manslaughter charge. And the gang that just surrounded him had no idea what they had started. What happened next shook the foundation of that prison. Stay with me on this one. 2 weeks earlier, Marcus Cole stepped off a prison transport bus at Whitfield Federal Penitentiary. The chain around his waist clinked against the leg irons as he shuffled across the asphalt. Guards on either side looked small next to him. 300 pounds, 6'2", with hands the size of dinner plates. But the way he moved was slow, careful, like a man trying to take up less space than his body allowed. Inside processing, an officer ran through the standard intake. Name, number, charge, manslaughter. The officer looked up from his clipboard, studied Marcus for a second, then looked back down. Didn't ask questions. They never do when the charge speaks for itself. Marcus signed where they told him to sign, stood where they told him to stand, spread his arms when they told him to spread them. Compliant, automatic, like he'd been through processing before. Not prison intake, something else. They issued him a uniform 2 sizes too small. The shirt stretched tight across his chest and arms. The pants barely closed. A guard made a joke about it. Marcus didn't react. He took what they gave him and moved on. He was assigned to Block C general population. His cell was 6 feet by 9. A steel bunk. A metal toilet. A window the size of a shoebox that looked out on a concrete wall. He sat on the edge of the bunk and folded his hands between his knees. He didn't unpack. He didn't look around. He just sat there, still staring at the floor. His breathing was slow, controlled. In through the nose, out through the mouth. If you'd spent time around military men, you'd recognize it immediately. Box breathing. For seconds in. For seconds hold. For seconds out. The kind of technique taught to men who need to stay calm when everything around them is falling apart. Word travels fast inside a prison. By dinner time, every table in the cafeteria knew who the new arrival was. The big quiet one in Block C. No crew. No affiliation. No visitors on his sheet. No phone calls out. Just a man the size of a refrigerator who didn't talk to anyone and didn't look anyone in the eye. In prison, that kind of profile draws attention. Not the good kind. Silence reads as either fear or arrogance, and both are invitations. The first person to approach Marcus wasn't a threat. It was a kid, Terrence Davis, 19 years old. First offense. Got caught driving a car he didn't know was stolen for a cousin who swore it was legit. He was skinny, scared, and way too young for a place like Whitfield. He had the look of someone who still expected the world to make sense. Terrence sat down across from Marcus in the cafeteria without being invited. His tray was shaking slightly in his hands. "You're Big Country, right?" Terrence said. Marcus looked at him. Didn't answer. "They said you don't talk. That's cool. I don't really know anybody in here. And you seem, I don't know, safe." Marcus chewed his food slowly. Then, without looking up, he said, "Don't sit with your back to the door." Terrence blinked, looked behind him. The cafeteria entrance was directly at his back. He moved to the other side of the table without another word. That was the beginning. Not a friendship exactly. More like a silent understanding. Marcus didn't tell the kid what to do. He just said small things at the right time. Keep your head down. Don't borrow from anyone. Don't stare. Don't flinch. Walk like you know where you're going even if you don't. Terrence listened the way young men listen when they're terrified and someone steady finally shows up. Meanwhile, the real danger was watching. Darnell Price. Most people called him Razor. He'd been at Whitfield for 7 years and ran a crew of about 15 men across 2 cell blocks. Drugs, favors, protection, information. The usual economy. Razor was thin, sharp-featured, with a scar that ran from his left ear to his chin. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. When Razor spoke, people moved. He had a rule. Every new face either pays tribute or gets tested. No exceptions. And the bigger the man, the bigger the message when he folded. He sent 2 of his guys to Marcus during yard time. They walked right up and grabbed the bag of commissary items Marcus had bought that week. Chips, soap, pack of ramen, a writing pad. Small things that mean everything when you've got nothing else. Marcus watched them take it. He didn't move, didn't speak. His eyes tracked them. That's all. Tracked them the way a camera tracks movement. Recording. Storing. The 2 men walked away laughing. One of them looked back over his shoulder, expecting something. A shout. A threat. Anything. Marcus just turned and walked the other direction. Razor heard about it within the hour. He smiled. Big man soft, he said. Good. We'll keep pushing. Over the next 10 days, it got worse. Marcus's bunk was tossed twice. His blanket taken. Someone spit in his food tray in full view of 20 other inmates. One of Razor's guys bumped him hard in the hallway, hard enough to knock a smaller man off his feet. Each time, Marcus did nothing visible. He absorbed every bit of it. Quiet, still, patient. Now here's the thing. What Razor and his crew saw was weakness. A big man too scared to swing. What they were actually looking at was discipline. The kind of discipline that takes 12 years of elite military service to build. The kind where a man watches his own food get spit in and his only thought is threat assessment, not anger. Marcus Cole wasn't scared. He was calculating. Every face, every angle, every exit, every potential weapon within arm's reach. But nobody at Whitfield knew that. Not yet. It happened on a Tuesday. Shower block. After evening count. The time of day when the cameras have blind spots and the guards rotate shifts. Marcus was alone. The water was running. Steam filled the room so thick you could barely see 3 feet ahead. He heard the door open behind him. Heard the footsteps. 3 sets. Heavy boots on wet tile. Spaced apart. He didn't turn around. They came in fast. The first one shoved Marcus from behind, both hands flat on his back. He hit the wall with his shoulder. The second one swung a piece of metal, a sharpened edge from a bunk frame, ground to a point and wrapped at the handle with tape. It caught Marcus across the forearm. A clean cut, deep enough to bleed heavy. Marcus turned around, water running down his face, blood mixing with it, swirling pink toward the drain. 3 men, Razor's crew. The one in front, a thick-necked guy they called Demo, was grinning. Razor says you owe him. Time to pay up, big country. Now here's where most people would have done one of 2 things. Fight or fold. Marcus did neither. He stepped sideways. Not toward any of them. Just sideways. Shifting the angle so that none of the 3 could come at him at the same time without crossing each other's path. It was a small move. Almost invisible if you weren't trained to see it. But it was textbook close-quarters battle positioning. The kind of movement drilled into someone who's been through 1,000 live-fire exercises. The one with the blade lunged. Marcus didn't block it. He redirected. One hand caught the wrist at the base of the thumb. The other pushed the man's elbow in a direction elbows don't go. There was a pop. The blade clattered to the tile. The man screamed and dropped to his knees. The other 2 froze. Just for a second. But a second was enough. They saw something in Marcus's eyes that didn't match the man they thought they knew. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even aggression. It was control. Total, practiced, terrifying control. The look of a man who has done this 100 times and is choosing not to do what he's capable of. Marcus didn't follow up. He stepped back. Hands open again. Palms down. The same posture he had in the yard. "We're done here," he said. Quiet. Like he was ordering coffee. The two standing men grabbed their friend and dragged him out. The blade stayed on the floor. A guard found Marcus 20 minutes later, pressing a towel to his arm. He told them he slipped on the wet tile. No one believed him. No one pushed it either. He got 12 stitches and a trip to solitary for his own protection. Solitary is 6 feet by 8. No window. A slot in the door for food trays. A light that never turns off. Most men break inside of 3 days. Marcus sat on the floor with his back against the wall and closed his eyes. And that's when it hit him. Not the cut. Not the cold. The memories. A jungle. Dense and wet and hot. Gunfire ripping through leaves. A voice on a radio calling for extraction that wasn't coming. A teammate on the ground, bleeding from the neck, looking up at Marcus with eyes that already knew. Marcus pressing both hands on the wound, saying "stay with me" over and over, like words could keep a man alive. 12 years. That's how long Marcus Cole served as a Navy SEAL. Not the kind you see in movies. The kind that doesn't exist on paper. Black operations. Classified missions. The kind of work where your name gets erased from the system and your family gets told you're consulting overseas. He was part of a unit that went where the regular teams couldn't. Small groups. High risk. Zero margin. Marcus was one of the best they ever had. Fast for his size. Smart. Calm under fire in a way that unnerved even the men beside him. The kind of operator who could clear a room of 6 armed men and still keep his heart rate under 100. He earned a nickname in the teams. Ghost. Because by the time the enemy knew he was there, it was already over. Then a mission in West Africa went sideways. Bad intel from a compromised source. An ambush in a village that was supposed to be empty. Marcus got his team out. All but one. Darius Kemp. 26 years old. 2 months from going home to a wife and a baby daughter he'd never held. Died in Marcus's arms in the back of a helicopter while the jungle disappeared below them. Marcus carried that weight out of the helicopter and never put it down. He left the service. Stopped training. Stopped running. Stopped caring about the body the Navy spent years turning into a weapon. He ate to fill the silence. Gained 100 pounds in 2 years. Moved to a small town in Georgia. Worked at a loading dock. Kept his head down. Then one night at a bar, a man put his hands on a woman. Grabbed her arm. Shook her. Marcus told him to stop. The man turned, saw the size of the person talking to him, and swung anyway. Marcus reacted on instinct. One strike. Just one. An open palm to the side of the head. The man hit the floor and didn't get up. Died 2 days later from a brain bleed. The court called it manslaughter. Marcus didn't fight the charge. Took the public defender and pled guilty. 8 years. So here he was. Whitfield. A man who once ran covert ops across 4 continents. Sitting in solitary. Remembering a dead friend's face. He came back to general population 4 days later. The block was different. Quieter around him. Razor's crew kept their distance. Not out of fear exactly. More like recalculation. Trying to decide what to do about a man who disarmed one of their best without throwing a single punch. But on the surface, things looked calm. Marcus went back to his routine. Cafeteria. Yard. Cell. He found Terrence in the rec room, sitting at a chessboard he'd borrowed from the library. The kid looked relieved to see him. "You okay?" Terrence asked. "I'm fine. I heard what happened. In the showers." Marcus sat down across from him. Picked up a knife. Terrence had carved small notches into the base. His initials. "Your move," Marcus said. They played 3 games. Terrence lost all of them, but he was smiling by the 3rd. The yard was warm. The sun came through the chain link and fell across the concrete in long, thin lines. A few inmates were shooting hoops at the far end. Someone had a radio playing something low and slow through an open window. For a moment, just a moment, the place felt almost bearable. Marcus leaned back on the bench, closed his eyes, let the warmth sit on his face. His breathing slowed, his shoulders dropped. For the first time in weeks, the tension left his body. He could hear Terrence arranging the pieces for a fourth game. The click of wood on wood. A normal sound, a safe sound. Then a voice behind him said 4 words that changed everything. "Razor's got the kid." Marcus opened his eyes. The inmate standing behind him was an older man named Curtis. Did his own time bothered no one. Curtis looked scared, genuinely scared. "Laundry room," Curtis said. 10 minutes ago. 4 of them. They dragged him down there. Believe me, what happened next is the part nobody at Whitfield will ever forget. Marcus stood up. And the man who stood up was not the same man who had been sitting. Something in his posture shifted so completely that Curtis actually took a step back. Marcus's shoulders squared. His chin dropped. His hands, which had been loose and open for weeks, closed into fists. Not angry fists, functional ones. The kind that know exactly what they're built for. He didn't run. He walked. But the walk was different. Measured. Every step the same length. Scanning. Reading the corridor like a map. Counting doors. Counting cameras. Noting blind spots. This wasn't a man walking through a prison. This was an operator moving through a target environment. Other inmates saw it. 2 men in the hallway pressed themselves flat against the wall to let him pass. They didn't know why they did it. Something in the way he moved just told them to get out of the way. A guard at the end of the corridor looked up from his clipboard, saw Marcus coming, and said nothing. Marcus reached the laundry room door. He could hear it before he opened it. Terrence's voice, pleading. The sound of someone being hit. A laugh. He pushed the door open. The room was hot and loud. Industrial washers and dryers spinning at full cycle. Steam pipes running along the ceiling, leaking heat. Terrence was on the floor in the back corner. Bloody nose. Shirt torn. One eye swelling shut. 4 men standing over him. Razor in the middle, holding a blade made from a file-down cafeteria spoon, ground to a point that could puncture a lung. Razor looked up, smiled. "Big country. Come to watch the show? Pull up a seat." Marcus stepped inside. Let the door close behind him. "Let the kid go," Marcus said. His voice was low, even. No tremor, no heat, just fact. "This is your one chance." Razor laughed. "One chance? Brother, you don't give chances in here. You take what's given." Marcus didn't respond. He just stood there, waiting. 2 of Razor's men moved first. One from the left, one from the right. Coordinated. They'd done this before. What happened next took about 4 seconds. The one on the left threw a wide hook. Marcus caught the arm mid-swing, rotated it, and drove the man face-first into an industrial dryer. The sheet metal boomed like a drum. The one on the right grabbed for Marcus's neck. Marcus dropped his weight, hooked the man's ankle, and drove his palm into the sternum. The man hit the concrete so hard the air left his lungs in a grunt you could hear over the machines. If you're still with me, hit that subscribe button. Because this is where the whole thing breaks open. Both men were down. Neither got back up. For seconds, 2 trained gang soldiers neutralized with 0 wasted motion. The room went quiet except for the dryer cycling and the hiss of the steam pipes. Razor's smile was gone, completely gone, replaced by something he hadn't felt in a very long time. The 4th man, a younger guy with a shaved head, looked at Razor, looked at Marcus, looked at the 2 bodies on the floor, and took 2 slow steps backward toward the wall. He didn't want any part of what was coming next. Marcus looked at Razor, calm, patient, the same way he'd looked at every threat since he walked into Whitfield. Except now a door that had been locked for years was open. "Let the kid go," he said again. Same tone. Same volume. Like he was repeating a weather forecast. Razor's hand tightened on the blade. His jaw worked. He was calculating whether he could win this fight. The answer was written on the floor. But Razor didn't get to where he was by backing down. Pride is the last thing a man like that surrenders. He lunged. The blade came fast, aimed at Marcus's midsection. A killing strike. Marcus moved. Not backward. Into it. His left hand caught Razor's wrist from the outside. His right came down on the inside of the elbow joint. The blade dropped. Before it hit the ground, Marcus had Razor's arm pinned behind his back and his face pressed flat against the industrial folding table. Now here's the thing. This is the part that matters. A man with Marcus's training could have ended Razor right there. Snapped the arm at the elbow. Collapsed the windpipe. Done the kind of damage that doesn't heal. He had every tool and every justification. He didn't. He held him. Firm. Controlled. Just enough pressure to make the point without causing permanent damage. Calibrated force. The hallmark of someone trained not just to destroy, but to choose. "I told you," Marcus said, close to Razor's ear. "One chance." He let go. Stepped back. Hands open. Palms down. Razor stumbled forward from the table, holding his arm. His eyes were wide. Not from pain. From recognition. He'd spent 20 years in the system. He'd fought every kind of man there is. Brawlers. Boxers. Gang soldiers. Men who fought with rage, with desperation, with nothing left to lose. He knew what violence looked like in every form it could take. What Marcus did wasn't violence. Not the kind Razor understood. It was something else. Precise. Mechanical. Every single movement designed for maximum effect with minimum damage. No wasted energy. No emotion. No rage. Just cold, practiced, professional destruction on a level Razor had never seen in his life. And it scared him in a way that nothing inside those walls ever had. The fourth man was already gone. The two on the ground were groaning. Razor backed toward the exit, eyes locked on Marcus, and pushed through the door. Marcus walked to Terrence. Knelt down. "You all right?" The kid nodded. Nose still bleeding. "Nothing broken. Can you walk?" "Yeah." Marcus helped him up. Steadied him. They walked out of the laundry room together, Terrence leaning against Marcus's arm. The corridor outside was empty. Word had already spread that something was happening behind that door. Inmates had cleared out in both directions. Even the guards were nowhere to be seen. The whole thing lasted less than 2 minutes. By that night, every cell block at Whitfield knew the story. And it grew with every retelling. Big Country took down 3 of Razor's guys without breaking a sweat. Took a blade out of Razor's hand like he was taking a toy from a child. Didn't throw a single wild punch. Every move was clean. Surgical. Professional. The word that kept surfacing in every whisper, through every tier and every block, was military. Nobody knew the details yet, but they knew this much. Marcus Cole was not what he appeared to be. The warden found out the next morning. Not from inmates, not from guards, from the cameras. The laundry room had one camera mounted high in the corner behind a wire cage. Caught most of what happened. Warden Daniel Holt sat in his office and watched the footage 3 times. He was a career corrections man. 22 years in the federal system. He'd seen prison fights by the hundreds. They were ugly, desperate, chaotic. Haymakers and wrestling and guys falling over equipment. What he saw on that footage was none of those things. He saw textbook military combat. Footwork. Timing. Economy of motion. A man disassembling 4 opponents in under 2 minutes without a single wasted movement. He picked up the phone and called the Bureau of Prisons Regional Office. "I need a full background pull on an inmate. Marcus Cole. 47831-012. Whatever's behind the redaction wall. I want all of it." What came back 2 days later made Holt sit down. Navy SEAL. 12 years active duty. Multiple classified deployments across 4 continents. Commendations that were redacted at the agency level. A service record with more black lines than readable text. Medical discharge after a mission failure in West Africa. Details sealed by the Department of Defense. Holt closed the file and looked out his window at the yard. Marcus was sitting on a bench, alone, face turned toward the sun. The most dangerous man in the entire facility, sitting there like he was waiting for a bus. The power structure inside Whitfield shifted overnight. Not with announcements, just a quiet, steady rearrangement. Razor's crew pulled back from everything. Other groups noticed. Everyone recalibrated. Nobody tested Marcus. Nobody approached him without an invitation. Nobody even looked at him too long in the cafeteria line. But it wasn't simple fear. It was something more complicated than that. He'd had every reason and every right to destroy Razor in that laundry room. Every justification. And he chose not to. He used exactly enough force to end the threat and not 1 ounce more. In a place where violence is the only currency anyone respects, that kind of restraint was harder to understand than brutality. And harder to challenge. Terrence started sitting with Marcus at every meal. His bruises faded. He stopped flinching when doors slammed. He started reading books Marcus recommended. History, strategy, philosophy. The kid was smart. He just needed someone to tell him that. 2 weeks after the laundry room, Warden Holt called Marcus to his office. Between them on the desk was the manila folder with the real service record. "You want to tell me about this?" Holt said, tapping the folder. Marcus looked at it. "No. 12 years of the highest level military service this country offers. And you're in my prison because some drunk swung on you and you hit him once." Marcus said nothing. "I've never seen anyone move the way you moved on that footage. You could have killed every man in there. You didn't. Why?" Marcus looked at Holt for a long time. The office was quiet. Just the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of the yard through the closed window. Then he said, "Because I already know what it costs." Holt leaned back in his chair. He'd prepared for a lot of possible answers. Defiance. Denial. Bravado. Not that. Not a man who looked like he was talking about a debt he'd been paying for years. "I can make things easier for you in here," Holt said. "Protective custody. Work detail reassignment. Library access. I can even put in a word with the parole board when your eligibility comes up." "I don't want easier," Marcus said. "I want to do my time. Quiet. That's all I've ever wanted. The gangs will come again. Word's out now. People outside these walls will hear about this. Military contacts. Intelligence agencies. You've got a target that goes beyond this prison." Marcus stood up. "Then I'll deal with it when it comes." He walked out. Back in his cell that night, Marcus sat on his bunk after lights out. The block was quiet except for the usual sounds. Someone coughing 2 cells down. A radio playing something soft through a wall. The distant clang of a door closing on another tier. He reached under his mattress and pulled out a small photograph. Creased and soft from handling. A group of men in desert camouflage standing in front of a helicopter. 8 of them, all smiling, sunburned, exhausted, alive. Marcus was in the middle, 100 pounds lighter, a different man in a different life. He looked at the face of the man next to him, Darius Kemp, 26 in that photo, arm around Marcus's shoulder, grinning like he'd just heard the best joke in the world. Would never get any older than that grin. He thought about the bar, the night that ended his freedom, the woman crying, the drunk with his hands on her, Marcus stepping in, the swing, and the half-second decision that followed. He could have blocked it, redirected it, put the man in an arm lock and held him for the cops. Done any of the 100 things 12 years of training gave him to end a confrontation without permanent damage. But he didn't. He threw one punch, just one. the way a normal man would. Because in that moment he was trying so hard not to be what he was. Trying to be the man who loads trucks and drinks coffee and goes home to an empty apartment and doesn't carry the knowledge of 17 ways to end a life with his bare hands. He wanted to react like a regular person. Just once. And a man died. Because even Marcus Cole's regular is more than most people can survive. That's the weight he carried. Not just Darius. Not just the bar. The knowledge that he could never fully turn it off. That the thing the United States Navy spent 12 years and millions of dollars building him into would always be there underneath the fat and the silence. No matter how much weight he gained. No matter how quiet he kept. The weapon was always loaded. Always ready. He put the photograph back. Lay down. Stared at the ceiling. The next morning, Marcus walked into the yard. The sun was up. The air was cool. Terrence was already at the chess table, pieces set up, waiting. Marcus sat down across from him. "You going to teach me that thing you did?" Terrence asked. "In the laundry room?" "No." "Why not?" Marcus looked at the kid. 19 years old. Smart. Scared. Still young enough to become anything. "Because you don't need it," Marcus said. "You need to finish your time. Get your GED. Get out. And never come back to a place like this. That's the only skill that matters." Terrence looked at the board. Moved a pawn. "What about you?" Marcus picked up his knight. The one with Terrence's initials carved into the base. He turned it over once in his hand. Set it down on the board. "I'm right where I'm supposed to be," he said. The yard was quiet. The sun moved slow across the concrete, stretching shadows through the chain-link fence into long, dark lines. Two men sat across from each other at a chess table inside a maximum security prison. And for the first time in a very long time, neither one of them was afraid. Not of the gangs. Not of the guards. Not of the years still ahead of them. That's the story of Marcus Cole. Big country. The man who looked like prey and turned out to be the most dangerous person inside those walls. Not because of what he could do. Because of what he chose not to do. And somewhere in Whitfield Federal Penitentiary, a warden sat in his office staring at a classified file, knowing that the quietest man in his prison was a weapon the United States government spent 12 years perfecting. And all that man wanted was to sit in the sun, play chess with a scared kid, and make sure that kid made it home in one piece. Some men carry their power in their fists. Marcus Cole carried his in his silence. And the day he broke that silence, every man in that prison learned what it sounds like when a man decides he's done being quiet.